Man, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm super glad to have you here, and hopefully we'll explore a bunch about you, I guess, today, and what you guys got going on in the business. So you should have all the answers.
Yeah,
if
sure.
You didn't
Yeah.
have to study.
I was about to say I didn't get the script beforehand, so.
So I want to start a little bit about you first. Obviously, we'll come to where your perch is now. But when Sean Taylor was a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to play sports. When I was a kid growing up, my dad, he played 4 sports in high school. He was in the military, played a little bit of baseball when he was in the military. And so I always grew up playing sports, and I thought, I want to be a baseball player, like any kids. I played football, basketball, and baseball growing up, and played into high school. But, I didn't have the frame to go long term, to put it mildly.
Right.
So, I kind of figured out in the middle of high school that I wasn't going to be able to play beyond high school and into college. So then it was, what do you want to be, when you grow up? And I had a family friend who I had a lot of respect for. Was a good friend of my dad's, and he had a wife and kids, and went to the same church. And so I asked, my dad, his name's John Lucht, Lucht. I said, what does Mr. Lucht do? And my dad said, well, he's an accountant. And I said, well, that's what I want to be then, So I actually took 2 years of accounting in high school just because they offered it, believe it or not.
You would test it out.
Yeah, and it was clicking. It was going well. So I had declared going to the University of Georgia I was going to be an accountant. From day one, I wanted to,
You knew then?
I knew then, yeah, believe it or not. And then when I graduated from Georgia, I took an internship with the same guy's firm, Smith & Howard, where we sit today, who was friends with my dad. So it's an interesting discussion on, if you believe in destiny and outlook and all that kind of stuff. But even beyond that, just, this guy would stop on his way home from work and shoot hoops in the driveway with me and my dad. And I was 12 or 13 years old, and it just had this impact, right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty cool story.
Did you mentioned military? So did you move a lot? Were you a military kid?
No, my dad was in the military, but he finished his military service and before I was born. So no movement. In fact, to the contrary, man, I have lived literally in the metro Atlanta area, except for when I went to college, which was University of Georgia, which is all of an hour and 20 minutes away. I have always lived within an hour and a half of where we sit today.
No way. I didn't realize that. For some reason, I thought you'd moved around a bit.
Yeah.
But in that process, was your dad in accounting at all? I know you talked about Mr.
He was
Luck,
not. My dad was a general contractor. So his dad was a construction guy. Mm-hmm. So my dad grew up around that, and then my dad was in the service after high school, and then he went back to college to study journalism. He did that for a little while, but he had a funny saying. There's people will say a penny for your thoughts.
Yeah.
And he said that's literally what journalism paid, was a penny for his thoughts. So if he wanted to have a real income, he needed to do something else. So he went back to work with his dad.
Okay.
So he got back into construction that way, and then just continued the course from there. So he was a general contractor. He put me on job sites growing up to teach me the importance of an education. So I was, with the landscape crew, I was on rooftops. I was insulating duct and pipe, and I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to, have a good education to where I wasn't going to have to be a day laborer, and that sort of thing, which was a great life lesson again from my dad. So lessons from sports growing up, lessons from, my dad's, work, kind of, and then the impact of friends and family kind of led me in the direction.
So I wondered about that. Did you observe a work ethic in your father or both your parents? Was that a primary example for you?
Yeah, for sure. My dad worked his ass off.
Yeah.
If it's not okay to cuss, tell me.
Yeah, you're fine.
And I saw it all the time. And I mean, I didn't grow up with a lot. I mean, we were fine, right? Yep. I mean, compared to the world, right? But I mean, it wasn't that we had a ton of discretionary, income.
Yeah.
Both my parents worked, and my dad traveled a decent amount with his work, but he was also involved, in our activities. My mom was involved in our activities. And so, I witnessed him work his tail off. We finished the basement in our house, and he did it himself.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. We didn't hire in a bunch of people from the outside. He did it all.
Imagine that.
And so, I saw him, roll up his sleeves, and I certainly was impacted by that. I am in no way, shape, or form the smartest person, even in this room today, Phil. So, certainly not in my business and around the people that I associate with, but I can outwork most people, and most of that came from, the impact of my family.
Did you have a competitive household? Like siblings or like that?
I had a brother.
Okay.
He's 3.5 years younger than I am, and we weren't really competitive because of the age difference. We didn't run in that many of the same circles. I was finishing high school when he was just beginning.
Yeah.
So we had a good relationship. It wasn't a competitive relationship, but my dad and I were competitive just again through the vehicle of sports, right?
Yeah.
You want to win, you want to be at your best. And I love competition. I love, the idea of competition. I love how competition brings out the best in you, maybe more than you even think you have, right? And some of that, came through that and certainly carried over for me, again, because I don't have certain God-given talents, and I'm not the smartest person in the room, so maybe I have to work a little harder to be able to accomplish some of the things, and all of that came through, those experiences.
So many times when we're going through life, like it's so prescriptive. You get done with elementary school, you go to middle school, high school, college. And some people it's the college route, sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You have a unique story in the sense that there weren't too many roads or wandering and veering off of the path. Did you start with Smith & Howard right out of school?
I did, yeah. It's a funny story. It's right out of school. It's the only place I've ever worked.
Did you do an internship there, you said, before?
I did, yeah. So the path was I graduated in January of 94, and I started interviewing in 93.
Yeah.
And it was a little harder time. I was interviewing with the big CPA firms, trying to go into public accounting, and I wasn't having a ton of luck. And I was certainly calling this same gentleman for advice, and he mentioned that they have an internship program, and maybe while I'm ultimately interviewing for what I want to do, I could intern with them.
Yep.
And so I did decide to do that. I interned with them in January of 94, and once I got into working with them and got to experience the culture, Smith & Howard was only 24, 25, 26 people at the time, so I got to work with everybody.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and so getting the experience of working with the founding partners, Joe Smith and Jim Howard, was great, and I liked the people, and I think I tricked them because at the end of the internship they said, "Do you want to have a full-time job with us?" And at that point it was, okay, well, I've got something here.
Yeah.
The people like me. I enjoy the work. I don't care what else is out there. I'm going to keep going with this. And so that's how I got started. And I grew up with the firm. As the firm has grown and its clients have grown and the needs of its clients have grown, I've just sort of grown up alongside that. So, it's the only place I've ever worked. Again, my story is not one of moving around a lot, either in life or in my career. One place. It's the road less traveled, right?
Right. But probably worth some merit to consider that others might want to think about doing the same thing. There was such at least in the generation and the two generations before, loyalty was such a big deal. Like it was.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think back to my dad. He only really worked two places the entire time that I can recall him. Coming up, and today it's very rare I see a resume that somebody hasn't worked 3, 4, 5, 6 places. And
early in their career.
You could be 10 years into your career and have been at 6 jobs. And I get excited when I see a resume that has somebody that's worked 2 places in 15 years, right? Mm-hmm. It tells me a lot about the places they worked, right? Mm-hmm. I want people to come from good places, good experiences, not have some scar tissue from a bad experience somewhere else. And then I think it says a lot about not every aspect of our job is great. We all got to put up with stuff that's not.
It is work after
not
all.
Good, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I like it when people can handle the tough stuff, but not run for the hills at the same time. You know, do stuff that they don't necessarily like. And that's definitely a culture here at our firm. There's a lot of people who have spent only their career. This is the only place that they have worked in their career. We have a number of people like that.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have a number of partners like that. Yeah.
Huh. I want to come back to that because I've got a question surrounding that. But before we do, considering your benefactor status from it, I assume the internship program is still existing today?
Oh, yeah. In fact, the funny thing about it is I think I told you that back when I started with the firm, we were about 24, 25, 26 people. That's how many interns we had this past busy season.
I wondered. I thought, well, there's probably the equivalent of what that program looks like today.
Yeah, it's gone extremely well. We have interns that work out of this office and other offices as well. So,
when in the early stages of your career, or even as the years have gone on, was every year, or was each progressive promotion and what have you, was it affirmation that accounting was where you wanted to be, or were there moments like, and if so, where were those moments where you thought, I really should pursue or try something?
Yeah, sure, that makes total sense. It's natural in the CPA world, right? Public accounting is, when I was coming through, you had to have 2 years of experience before you became a CPA in public accounting.
Okay.
So you had to have at the time, a 4-year degree. Now there's a 150-hour requirement. So you have to have 150 hours of education and then either be supervised directly by CPAs in public accounting for 2 years, or at the time for me, it would have been 5 years in private accounting. Mm-hmm. And so back at the time I graduated and started working in the mid-'90s, you would see a lot of people spend 2 years in public accounting, get their license, and CPA designation, and then leave public accounting. I had a client that I had worked with here at the firm for the first couple of years have a need come up, and the CFO asked me, if I'd be interested in talking about it. So I talked to him about it. And I actually, they said, the job's yours if you want it. But I just, for whatever reason, I said no, because I wasn't really looking for a job. It wasn't that something was wrong. Right. It was that I was pursued. Somebody was interested in me. And I stayed. And then again, at about the 5 or 6 year point, when I was up for manager, it kind of felt like, all right, if I'm going to take on the role of manager, I'm kind of committing really long term. And so I need to really think about, is this the thing? Because I hadn't looked at other places. So I did. I interviewed 3 or 4 places, and I had a job offer or two. And it just, when it came down to making the decision to leave, I kept thinking about, nothing's really wrong here. Nothing's broken here. They're actually inviting me into more leadership responsibilities.
Yep.
It's worked really well for me. The grass isn't always greener. Maybe it's greener right here. And so I stayed with it. And that's the last time I interviewed. I mean, I have never, ever once since then. That was, been here 31 years. So that was 26 years ago. That was the last time I even looked at a job ad or spoke to a recruiter about anything for me. So I did look at it, and I think that's absolutely a must. I think people should consider, alternatives in their life, because I think what it does is it provides them with learnings about what else they can experience, and maybe that's worth the while. But I also think it can also give you a deeper appreciation for where you're at. When you start that process. And that's what it did for me, at least.
I've noticed so many times, I've told people this too. I said, it's one thing if somebody shows you or can entice you with the chance to make more money. Mm-hmm. But the important question is, do you know how to make more money? Mm. Because you can say, well, if I did this job, yes, there's more opportunity there. But if I go this route, there's even more. But I don't even know this route that well, and being able to know how to exploit and maximize your income in that vein or that venue is almost more important, because if you don't know what you're doing, then you're never going to see the result you expect.
And I also would suggest that people look at the economic part of it and more of a long-term viewpoint than the short term, right? The short term, can I bump my salary 20% by job
hopping,
job hop?
Yeah.
Sure, you can. And so I try to graph it out when people are talking to me about that. I say, if you make the move right now, say from public accounting to industry, you'll get that spike, but most likely it flattens out. Whereas if you stay here, it's going to be more of a progressive growth. And there's a gap. There's an intersection point at some point where you might have spiked up above where your pay is
the
now.
XY,
but it's going to catch up. And when it intersects, where we are is going to go higher than where you're going. As long as you're okay with that, as long as you know the exchange that you're having take place here is you're giving up more future comp for more. You're giving up the opportunity for more future comp in return for currently getting more compensation and maybe a bump in responsibilities. And maybe that's what you want. Or maybe you just don't want the challenges and rigors that come with having to do a job to make that additional economic return. So I have that conversation very transparently with people. And
it's the instant gratification. Like, am I willing to put off a small no today for a bigger yes tomorrow? Like,
I think that's a big part of it, right? Anytime someone is looking for a job, people make offers to entice people, to lure them. And you have to prioritize what's important in your decision, right?
Yeah.
The responsibilities, the culture, the work, the economics, right?
Yeah.
And I tend to find the economics, while still important, are not as important as they used to be.
It's not. There's a different generation. I mean, when I came out of school, it was all money motivated. Like, how can I make? But
I think people are not making job decisions based upon money first, where maybe that used to be what it was. Money and my direct manager, the person I worked with. I think it's really more about, the impact the company that they work for makes. I think they want to know that it's a place that creates value for their communities, for the people that work there. I think they want to know that the work they're doing is valuable somehow, that who they do it for and what they do, creates something beyond just, economic benefit. And then you get into the aspect of, what kind of economic package is there so I can take care of myself and my family.
Yeah. I was thinking about two distinct times in your career I wanted to ask you about. The first one, and maybe it sounded like it might have been about 5 or 6 years in, you were presented with a management opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You go from what I'll call being an independent producer or independent contributor to a manager of people.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see yourself from the beginning as taking that route or going into that venue, or was it you never really anticipated that and here you are, you're finding yourself in management?
I think when I first took the full-time job offer they gave me, it wasn't like I was sitting there going, hey, one day I'm going to be the leader of a 500-person organization. Like, I don't think that was in my mind.
Right.
I think what was in my mind was, I'll take the job and I'll learn and I'll grow and we'll see where it goes. I think along the first 2 years, as I watched people supervise and monitor me, I thought to myself, could I do what they're doing, for another individual? And so it was kind of in small doses. Could I supervise people? Yeah, I think I could. Because I liken it a little bit to teaching and coaching, and I felt like I could teach and coach the stuff that I learned. Could I translate it for someone else or help someone else? Because like a year or two in, I was maybe having to supervise an intern or do certain things. So there was some of that going on. And so when I got invited to be a part of the management team at Smith & Howard, I felt pretty confident that I could do it. I'm pretty good at leveraging and, delegating and keeping a lot of things moving at one time. And so managing multiple teams or putting together teams to do well with something, I've always felt a degree of confidence with, and that translated to the work here. And I think about the time when they were inviting me to management, I thought to myself, okay, could I ultimately get into the partnership? Could I be one of the partners of the firm? I think at that point I thought to myself, yeah, I could. So let's go down this path. And a lot of that began to happen then. And at that point it was more about, okay, well, I'm going to continue to learn here, but I also wanted to look externally as to what I could do to learn from others, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is very, very important for people is learn from the people you work with, but then also get in community with, other leaders, other coaches, other teachers, other business leaders, peers, people that have been there before, and learn from what they've done, right? Hear stories and take the good and add it to what you do. And so I began the journey of trying to seek external coaching. Ultimately, I joined Vistage, which I think you know that. I've been a member of a Vistage group now for 23 years, which is a long time. I don't think.
Sure.
But I learned a lot from sitting around the table with other, executive leaders, hearing their stories, hearing their issues. And so it was taking the work responsibility growth and serving these clients and watching our successful clients and then sitting side by side with CEOs and learning from what they've done well and what struggled with. All that just kept kind of adding to my experience and adding to my knowledge base and ultimately adding to my development.
There are arrows in the quiver, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then maybe, and I'll make an assumption or be a little presumptuous in my thought. Perhaps then now you're in management, the greatest test of that. Now 5 years ago, COVID hits.
Mm-hmm.
As a leader and manager of a much larger organization, what are the tools, the weapons, the lessons you take away from that?
Yeah. So I a little bit of progression. I'm going to answer your question, but a little bit of progression so people understand. So I ultimately became a partner in 2003 and was asked to lead our audit practice in 2010. So my role of managing a number of people kept increasing. I went from managing maybe one person to 5 people to 25 people to 125 people. And in 2017, I was asked to take on the responsibility of being the managing partner of the firm, think CEO, right? Yeah. And I agreed to take that on. And so in 2019, I began that journey. And no one told me that I was going to have to manage us through a pandemic, a global pandemic. But there I was, and funny enough, in January of 2020, we had just unveiled a 10-year vision. And then in March of 20, we sent everybody home, with COVID, right? So it was...
What do they say? If you want to hear God laugh, announce your plans.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly right. And he was laughing pretty hard.
Yeah.
But what I leaned into during that time was just connectivity with people, just being human, right? People were scared. I mean, it was such an uncertain time. If you think back to early COVID, March, April, May, I mean, the news and a lot of people dying and just the uncertainty and the marketplace was struggling, you know. People were worried, right? And so the first few months was just about, hey, I don't have all the answers. And yeah, I'm a little worried too. And it was just storytelling. We were filming video messages that we were sending out to all of our employees on a weekly basis.
Okay.
And I was saying, think about this or focus on this. And it wasn't me telling them what to do. It was just me relating to them.
Yep.
I didn't have the answers, but I knew that we were a good company. I felt, good enough about the future to display some confidence, but also to sympathize with people who maybe were less confident about it. Mm-hmm. And it affected our employees in different ways. I mean, we had employees who lost family members due to COVID.
Oh, sure.
Some direct, but more so extended family members. And so
you're thinking, I'm not prepared for this.
Like who am I to manage people through that process, right? I mean, seriously. But I think it's just relatability. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's a high degree of servant leadership. If you need to go away for 2 months because you got to take care of this, I'll handle it. We'll handle it. We will step in for you. You are not subservient to me and my wishes.
Yeah.
We will work for you. I'm happy to wash your feet. Mm-hmm. I will do whatever it takes for you to get through these tough times, and because that's what we should do for one another. And I learned that early on. A funny story on that. I was probably 3-4 years into my career, and the toilets were overflowing at our office suite. And and I didn't know this, but I go in there to use the bathroom, and water's coming all out. And I look inside the door, and Joe Smith, our founding partner, has rolled his pants up, rolled his sleeves up, and has a mop, and is in there mopping the bathroom floor. This is the founding partner of the firm mopping the bathroom floor.
It's messaging.
So, yeah, if you need to go away for a month to take care of your sick mother who has COVID, do it.
Yep.
And so we were just messaging relatability, sympathy, compassion, care, patience, and just stability. Just hold on, because
Keeping people tethered to the,
And it was constant. It wasn't an email. It was personal too. It was video. It was messaging. I mean, I said, call me. Here's my cell phone. Call me if you need to talk about this.
Yep.
That's all I knew to do. I didn't have the answer. I just knew to get in community with our people closer. So,
And correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm not mistaken, there are probably a handful of years in a row, I believe you guys have been voted one of the best places to work.
yeah, that's right, Phil. We've been very blessed and fortunate. The foundation of the firm and the culture that the leaders even before me put in place has carried over. And the result of that, we live our values is the short story, right? And we do not deviate from that. And by living our values, one of the things that comes out of it is growing stronger together. That's our people value. And by investing in people, time, energy, money, people feel very, I think you used the word tethered. They feel very tethered to this place and to us. And that we'll do anything for them. I mean, we create roadmaps for them. We teach them how to get from A to B to C to D here. And so people stay.
Yeah.
It's a great place to work, and people stay. And that has translated into AJC Best Places to Work, USA Today Best Places to Work. Inside Public Accounting, we've been voted best of the best in the industry for, I think, 15 years or something like that, consecutive. Those aren't the goals, right?
Correct.
The goals are living the values, but it's a byproduct of living the values.
Is that common in the industry that you'd have that kind of tenure and seniority with people?
No, it's not. Normally, there's more turnover in our industry.
I figured with like the grind of like peak seasons and
public accounting has a pretty high degree of turnover. We're below industry ratios on how much turnover we have, and therefore we're above industry trends on how long we retain our clients. Right? Clients love the same people coming back and serving them year after year, watching people grow and progress. My first day on the job, January 4th, 1994, I did all my paperwork. The next day, I was at the office of Benning Construction Company right up here off of South Atlanta Road, in there as an intern, and Benning Construction Company is still a client today. And they watched me go from intern to staff to senior to manager to partner in charge of the audit group to CEO of the company. And they've watched several people behind me progress through their work the same way.
Yep.
So it's a cool story, but it's all steeped in living values, and then ultimately aligning our values with our client values, right? Creating raving fans, right? When you align with what your client believes and you walk that journey together, you have clients for life.
What the relationship with the client, excuse my ignorance, is it's really on a year-by-year basis, right? Like, I mean, there's no guarantee they're coming back to you each year. Is that
sure? That's
fair?
correct.
I mean, they're making a conscious choice. It's not contractual that, well, we're like a mortgage. I got to pay this company for 30 years.
That's right.
There's no guarantee that person returns, but it's in the repeat business that kind of gives you that affirmation.
A lot of the services we provide are needs they have to have tended to every year. So there's an annuity feature to it. Their tax return has to be done every year. Their audit has to be done every year. Certain accounting has to be done every year. Property tax filings, sales tax filings. There's a continuity to that they need. And ultimately, you're right. They could work with us for a year and leave.
Yeah.
There's nothing tying them to us. We enter annual engagement letters. But when it's going well, they don't seek to change just for change's sake, right? If you got a great banker, if you got a great dry cleaner, if you got a great attorney, if you got a great CPA, these are people you will stay with in many cases for life if their relationship is strong. And so living those values helps to, tie those bonds tighter. And it prevents, outside forces from potentially coming in and taking that over. A lot of our clients a lot of our people, they won't take meetings with others. Mm-hmm. I'm not interested in talking to you about what else is out there because I love what I have here, right? Yeah. And that's a byproduct. That's why our clients stay. That's why our people stay. And that's part of the success formula of the firm. There's no rocket science to it. It's just living values and caring for one another and aligning what you do with who you do it for.
A handful of years ago, I don't remember exactly when, so you can clarify this for me. You guys took on a PE partner in the business. How did you preserve and maintain that? That is like the classic age-old, if an acquisition or a merger, or in this case, a investment partner comes in, nothing's going to change. Like it's all status quo. Sure. And then everybody looks at each other going, things are going to change.
That's right.
How did that not happen?
Yeah. So our industries have been experiencing a lot of change. I think I referenced to you earlier on that we unveiled a 10-year Vision 2030, and we unveiled that in January of 2020. And the theme of it's exponential growth. It was developed with our entire manager and partner team in all of 2019. We followed the Harvard Business Review article on creating your vision. Jim Collins and Jerry Porras wrote it. It's a great script, and we followed it verbatim. And out of that came Vision 2030, which is exponentially grow in all we do to transform ourselves into a nationally recognized brand while continuing our history of top performance, all to have a positive impact on the next generation.
Okay.
But steeped in that is exponential growth in geography, services, clients, impact, career opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And we knew that we were going to embark on a period of growth. And we knew part of that growth was going to be an M&A strategy.
Yeah.
So we were building an infrastructure in 2020 that could basically house that acquisition strategy starting in 2021. And so we set out to do that. COVID hit, slowed us down a little, but we kept with it. And then in 2021, we were like, okay, I think we're ready. Let's go start some acquisitions. And private equity entered our industry for the first time.
Really? First time?
Private equity had never had investments in the CPA industry prior to late summer, early fall of 2021.
Huh, okay.
So when that happens, the entire ecosystem of M&A changes, right?
Yep.
The traditional model was firms would come together, there would be sort of a merger, and future cash flows would pay for, the deal. Now you needed to come to the table with a certain amount of capital, and the valuations were higher because private equity had come in. And we knew that the M&A strategy to Vision 2030 was going to be impacted.
Yep.
Our ceiling was going to come down, which was fine if everybody wanted that.
Right.
So we talked internally as a leadership team, do we want to sort of pivot, maybe lower the ceiling a little bit? Because I'm not going to be able to go to a competitive M&A environment and bid against somebody that's private equity backed and win on the economics. I can win on culture, but I'm not going to be able to win on economics. And our leadership team talked about it and thought, and we were below $40 million in revenue at the time. We thought, I don't know whether private equity would even be interested in us at our size, but we were successful. You know, we were a highly successful firm. So we just decided, let's educate ourselves, let's go to market and find out. And we found out pretty quickly that, because of our success, because of our model, because of the growth plan we had in place, there was a lot of interest in us. So we took on private equity in the fall of 22 to help us with our M&A strategy, to be able to go to the table and compete on deals.
They probably didn't dictate what you were going to do or how you were going to do it as much as it could have been in a different scenario.
They got behind our plan.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to market saying, here's Vision 2030, here's our growth plan, here's what we want to do, here's the M&A side of it. Do you feel like you could get behind this and our leadership team? Which they did. I'm going to circle all the way back now to how do you preserve the culture, which was your question.
Right.
You didn't ask for a whole take me down the path of private equity, but I think it's important to set the groundwork for why we took on private equity.
Yeah.
It wasn't to, get a bunch of older partners out who we owed a lot of obligations to. None of our partners left when we took on private equity. Everybody stayed.
Wow. Okay.
It was to seed our acquisition strategy in the marketplace. And of course, when we unveiled it to our employees, we told them a lot of the same things you were referring to.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change other than the fact you'll have more opportunities for growth. I think it was the trust in who we were for all those years that led them to believe that and stay. And we've worked very, very hard to make that continue. And here's how I know it's been working. Last summer, I was at a concert, and one of my senior managers came to that concert with me up at Ameris, the amphitheater, in close to you.
Yeah.
And when we were leaving, we were driving out. Daniel said to me, "Hey, how's it going with the private equity group?" By now it had been almost 2 years that we've been with them. I said, it's going great. He said, "Sean, to tell you the truth, if you hadn't told us all that we were taking on a private equity partner, I would have no idea."
Wow.
That right there told me that we had done exactly what you were referring to. Preserve the culture for Daniel's progression and for everybody else's progression, right?
Yep.
While at the same time getting the benefit of private equity to help us with acquisitions we had already made to that point and continue to make. That doesn't often happen when you take on private equity. And we knew that coming in. And part of our benefit was we had seen our clients for years use private equity, and we had seen the good, we had seen the bad.
Right.
We knew what to look out for. And the number one thing to look out for going into it, we thought, was getting a private equity group that would believe in our leadership, let us operate the business, and basically be value proposition on top of that, not trying to change things we were doing. And so it took finding the right partner, which we've fortunately been able to do.
So you've got this kind of wind in your sails. You're making acquisitions, considering lots of different roads and avenues. How do you know? And along the lines, you're also increasing some of the services you provide. Mm-hmm. How do you know where the line is to not be the total Swiss Army knife to every business? How do you know that we don't get into financial advising services, or we don't get into legal counsel, or we don't start providing insurance products or what have you? Where is there a line, or is it?
For us, first of all, the answer is there is some line at some point eventually, right? I mean, you got to think about, regulations obviously with lines, but assuming you can address regulations successfully, then the line is more about, I think, true advisory, relationship with your client, and not getting into very subjective reasons behind why you would tell a client to do something.
Yep.
If I'm telling a client, you should buy my product, is that really what's in the best interest of the client, your product? Or should I be advising them, here are all these products in the marketplace, here are the pros and the cons of each, and advising them on picking the best price? So one thing we try not to do is sell certain products. We don't sell insurance.
Yep.
Because not that there's anything wrong with selling insurance, a number of organizations do, but we feel like if we now have an insurance product, I am going to be a little conflicted on saying, well, I know that other insurance product's probably better for this client in this position, but I need to grow the sales of my insurance products.
Yep.
So we try to stay away from selling products. You see that in our RIA business, our Registered Investment Advisory practice. We use Schwab as our vehicle. We don't have a Smith & Howard fund that we sell you into, right? Mm-hmm. So I think for us, the line is trying to make sure the activities that we do are truly value enhancers to our clients, and not, well, I can package up a product and get you to buy. I can sell you mortgage services. I can a mortgage product. I can sell you an insurance product. We try to stay away from that. But there are several ancillary services that we can provide: tax credit studies, search and placement, valuation services. Those things, if they're service oriented and we think we're doing a good job for our client, I don't think that's a conflict. I think it's an enhancement. And now a client really has a 4, 5, 6 service prong relationship with us versus 1 or 2.
Yep.
It tightens the relationship and expands them the opportunity to work with more members of our team, and they see that culture and the living of the values in more of our people. And it actually, I think, just strengthens the bond between our clients and us by offering more ways to bring them value.
and just listening. Over time, the client will start asking questions about, hey, do you guys do this?
Yeah.
Or could you provide me that? And if all of a sudden you hear that enough and it's circulated amongst leadership or review or management discussions, all of a sudden you go, hey, wait, we've been asked a lot about life insurance or whatever that is.
Sure. Well, that's how that's a lot behind the way we put our 10-year growth plan in place was, for example, going back a number of years, we were not providing tax credit studies for our clients. If they would have that need, we would refer them out to someone else. We essentially went to all of our partners and said, what are the top 3 things we refer out that our clients come to us and they need? And it tended to be things like tax credit studies, placement of controllers and CFOs. I mean, if their controller's leaving, who are they going to call? Their CPA to say, my controller's leaving. Oh, my God, what am I going to do?
Yeah, do you know someone?
Do you know someone? And we would typically refer them to a recruiter. Well, what if we recruited for them? Because we know that company. We know their needs. We know their external reporting requirements. So we've really targeted services to add based upon the frequency of questions we get, requests we get for help from our clients, rather than, oh, wouldn't it be great to sell mortgages? No clients come to us and ask us for mortgage advice. They might ask us, hey, I need a new mortgage. Who do you know out there? So that's kind of been the framework behind it, and how we continue to grow and expand. I think the line is, again, don't cross over being truly objective and a true advisor for your client.
Yep. Well, and you've for the most part, you've picked things where you can provide value. In a mortgage, your underwriting process could be great, but really it just comes down, what are the rates, and I can do pretty much anything anybody else can do, where how am I really truly providing value beyond the product that I'm offering?
Yeah. I push back a little bit when people suggest that you can't make a commodity more valuable, right? Because people like to point to, for example, maybe our audits. Audits are commodities. Clients don't really want them. They have to have them for their investors or for their, lending partners, right? If you can take that commodity product in the eyes of the public and make it more valuable. And how do you do that? Well, you take the pain out of the audit process. You make it easier for the client, right? And they start relating it to audits they went through with other organizations. Wow, yours is different. It feels better. It's easier. Maybe we're finding value for them in the audit process. We're connecting them with other partners. We're connecting them with, we're helping them find business maybe even, right? I mean, you can take a commodity process or product and make it more valuable, and that's definitely a focus of ours. And I will tell you that if audit is our lead commodity product here at Smith & Howard, we tend to expand services for existing clients through our audit process findings more than most any service line here. Isn't that funny?
They probably recognize the contrast because it's usually a bad experience wherever they are.
I think they feel it, and it grows the trust, right? And then, it goes and grows from there. So, yes, I think we tend not to want to do things that clients would see as commodity or just transactional. I want them to see it more as a valuable service and a transformational relationship, because again, then they won't leave you. They won't want to leave you. They will feel like leaving you would be worse for them.
Yeah, fear of loss, right?
Yeah, and we're not perfect. I mean, we certainly make mistakes, and our employees are okay with us making mistakes because they know that we really care, and our clients are okay with us making mistakes because they know what our values are. They've got years of experience with it, and they know we really care. No one bats 1,000.
Right.
No one.
We've always said that. We won't be perfect. We will make mistakes, but it's the fact that we'll own the mistake and we'll do whatever it is necessary to rectify that.
Yeah.
I can't expect that my people will be perfect, but we jokingly say this line internally that if I lie to you, I expect you to quit. Because if you lie to me, I have to fire you. Like we've got to be able mutually. We've got to be able to operate with just a full level of trust, and that means I'll make a mistake, but I won't ever lie to you. And likewise, I expect the same out of you. You may screw something up here, may screw something up there, but it doesn't mean we have to end this. It's just we've got to be honest to move forward.
I think it's the pursuit of a perfect relationship.
Sure,
is more important than the pursuit of perfection in your craft or perfection in you. But perfecting a relationship allows for mistakes to not be seen as that big of a deal.
Yeah.
That you just, okay, what are we learning from this? Let's move forward and move ahead.
I want to respect your time. A couple more questions for you. A little bit about you. I've always wondered this. Like I feel this sometimes even on the pressure of being a father and a spouse and a leader of a family, but on a daily basis, you've got hundreds of people theoretically or figuratively looking to you for guidance. How do you stay sharp? Like where do you, and it could be in your personal practice, hey, I do these physical things every day. I do these mental exercises every day. I do these best practices outside the walls of this building for professional development or what have you. What are some of the things that people would be curious to know about? Like, hey, these are the things that keep you sharp as a leader.
Yeah, for me to stay sharp as a leader, it's about community. And I'm still very active in my Vistage group, so I get a lot out of that. I meet with peers. I'll read. I certainly suggest that people try to gain as much knowledge and understanding as they can from reading. And there's so many different offerings out there that people can dial into. I make it a point to put work down, though, and do things that are completely outside of work. Like I mentioned to you, going to shows. We like music. We like travel. I like going to sporting events. My son and I have been to every Major League Baseball park in the country.
No way.
We've missed 2.
Okay.
And the only reason we missed 2 was because of COVID. We were going to do Seattle in June of 2020, and we were going to do Oakland in June of 2020. And
Oakland's gone now.
And Oakland's gone now. And he was moving into college at that time, so we missed that. But I do these activities. Why do I do these activities? It integrates and deepens my relationship with my family, and also it's a release point. I mean, you got to put the pen down sometimes, man. You got to close the laptop sometimes. Yep. The other thing I do to stay sharp is really try to have a lot of other interests, not just what my trade is. Like I try to stay knowledgeable. I just try to stay knowledgeable on what's going on in entertainment, what's going on in sports, what's going on in international news, what's going on in politics. I'm not a big advocate for any of those things, but I like to know what's going on because it keeps me sharp. And when I'm in conversations with you or with any of our people and someone expresses an interest in chess, maybe I don't know anything about chess, but if I have some knowledge of it through just watching information and taking things in, then I can relate to that person.
Yep.
Right? Small thing that I do. I write a birthday card to every employee, handwritten note. Every employee gets a birthday card from me. And we have a new business that we acquired. They're based out of Richmond, but one of their employees lives in Lynn, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I was writing her birthday card this weekend, and I noticed she lives in Lynn, Massachusetts. I personalized her card to say, funny enough, my son used to play baseball, and he played for a team based out of Lynn, Massachusetts. So I have been to your hometown. I have a personal bond with that person now.
Yep.
And now as the de facto ultimate leader of that employee, every time we interact, we have that, which is a part of all the stuff that I did in coaching and working with my son and following my son and being a part of his life. I don't know every bit about the tax code. I don't know every bit about generally accepted, auditing standards and accounting principles. But I know a decent amount about a lot of things, and I stay current on a lot of things because it makes me relatable to most every one of our employees and people we come in contact with. That's what I would tell people to do. Be as relatable as possible.
Yep.
And look for the interest that the people you're talking to have, and relate to their interests. And I think doing that makes you a better leader.
Yep. I was just everything you're saying, I'm like, oh, this is music to my ears. Like maybe in the tech space where bits and bytes don't care what you feel. When you're in a people business or you're a leader of people, you've got to have trait conscientiousness to say, like, I realize you don't care if I know every digit or fact of the tax code. Because you're not here for spiritual reasons. You're here because it's a job, and you want to know that I care about you as an individual, not necessarily just about the ins and outs of our industry or business.
That's right.
Exit question for you. I'm hoping you've got something that would be funny or interesting to tell us about, and you can conserve the confidentiality of the client. Can you tell us about a time when, I wouldn't say a deal, but maybe a set of books were so bad, or something where it was just a dumpster fire engagement where you're thinking, like, we're either going to jail or this company is going to go up in flames. Just a story where not everything always goes perfectly, and it was a bad.
Yeah, we had one client where we started to question some of their business practices, and it wasn't even about the condition of their books and records. It was something doesn't feel right here.
Was it a long-term client, or were they?
They had been about a 4 or 5 year client at the point. And they were a big client. They were definitely at the time, a top 50 client of the firm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we became more and more uncomfortable with some of what they were doing. And we have client continuance meetings twice a year as a partner group where we talk about, are there any issues with clients that we need to talk about as a leadership team? And, and we do that. And many times it's just procedural. There's not a lot. We have great clients. Yep. We have incredible clients, right? But in this one case, there was something that, this partner and the ones that actually brought it up were actually the team. The manager and the senior on the job brought up concerns to this partner about it, and the partner took it serious, looked at it with his team member, and brought up concerns and brought it up to the partners, and we processed it and said, what do you want to do? And he said, I think I want to terminate the relationship.
Which is so hard to do.
This was
especially a big one.
And
right?
This was a partner who hasn't been a partner that long. This is coming off of his book of business, right?
Yep.
And again, we're going to this client saying, we're leaving you because we're questioning.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah, maybe a little bit about, your ethics or something like that. So we terminated that relationship, and it was ugly. Like, the client was very mad.
Yep.
2.5 years later, that client was indicted.
No. Mm-hmm. So suspicions were proved right?
Suspicions were proved at least right enough to where, we needed to walk away.
It was a smart thing to do.
Right. And again, I'm not disclosing anything about who the client was, any of that other kind of stuff. Totally confidential. But there were charges brought against the leaders of that company. And walking away from revenue, profits.
Yep. I was just going to say.
Was really hard to do, but it was really easy to do, Phil. I mean, once we examined it, it was like the answer's right there.
Not all business is good business, right?
Exactly. So, look, you have to, and I would take that to your employee base too. Like, you can't have really high performing people that don't buy into the culture. This was taught to me one time. If you've got a technical issue, I'll give you 6 months to work it out. Like something that you don't know technically that you need practice and reps on.
Yep.
So if you have a technical issue, I'll give you 6 months to work on it. If you have an attitude culture issue, I'll give you 6 minutes to work on it. Because you can't have an employee that is a high performing employee but is sort of a terrorist behind the scenes when it comes to culture. Yep. Just like you can't have a really high revenue client that could damage your reputation. It's taken us 55 years to develop our reputation. It could take 55 seconds to piss it away.
Yep. Man, thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I appreciate the invitation, Phil.
Good time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.